what motivated you to move to Northern Ireland?
I was married to somebody who got a job in Northern Ireland.
Well,
So that was that. It wasn't really my choice, but it was very much, as you say, it was a very difficult time and very frightening time, actually, for a lot of in living in Belfast. And so we moved out to Glenarm in County Antrim, and I loved living in the country, and that's where my children, when they were very young, lived, so that was good.
thank you. What was the feminist movement like in Northern Ireland in the early 1980s?
Well, it was very exciting. There was a lot going on, and there was some very interesting people getting involved in all sorts of initiatives, that were to do with women's liberation, women's education, women's politics. There was a lot of activity, and there was different organisations that set up at the time. But I found, because I had small children, I was quite dependent, and I became a single parent in 1981. So, so it was a lot of the support that I had as a single parent was from feminists, actually, in the women's movement of women I was meeting when I moved into Belfast and began to look around and see what I could join and be part of.
So WRD started life as the Women's Education Project in 1983. I was wondering if you could tell us a bit about how the project started and what the early days of the organisation were like.
Well, it was started by a group of women who were involved in adult education, for example, the Workers' Education Association, and different initiatives. And at the same time as the Women's Education Project started, the Belfast City Council also initiated a post for a women's officer, which Margaret Ward took up, who was also later a director of the WRDA. So Margaret and I worked together quite a bit at that time. So there was quite a lot of activity around education and the idea of women's education, because it was clear from the kind of numbers of local women's groups that were setting up, for mutual support, for shared childcare, all these kinds of things in some community centres, that there was a hunger there for getting together and for just talking together and for education. So it was really a great time, and there was no pressure for accreditation. It was much later that the kind of neoliberal agenda that was very economy focused had a big influence. So at the time, what was wonderful about it is that we could respond to need, and that's what we did.